Hello and welcome to your full moon forecast for the full moon in Taurus on November 5th, 2025. I am your astrologer, Cawnawyn Mor. Let's take a look at the chart. Okay, as a reminder, I always use an Aries rising, so we're not discussing houses today, but this is meant to be a pretty basic walkthrough of the chart. So if you're learning how to read the natal chart, you can follow along, hopefully learn a couple things and see how I, as an astrologer, interpret a chart upon first seeing it. This being for our full moon in the sky at 5:19 a.m. Pacific time. And the moon will be full in Taurus at 13 degrees 22 minutes, opposing our sun at 13 degrees 22 minutes of Scorpio. The Scorpio-Taurus axis, here we are. So whenever I'm looking at a full moon, we are looking at an opposition because the moon and the sun are on either sides of us on Earth. And whenever I see an opposition, I know this is likely going to show up as a relationship coming as a confrontation to us. It kind of shows up in the outside world, but as we know, as above, so below, as within, so without. Things that are showing up out here are really a mirror of what is going on internally. We may be approached with the archetypes of either the sun in Scorpio or the moon in Taurus at this time, or certain truths about those archetypes that we're having to integrate within ourselves. So if we think about the Taurus-Scorpio axis, these two signs that oppose each other, this to me is always indicative of the axis of security, first and foremost. With that comes, of course, resources, power. Within the realm of resources, this, of course, would be money, right? But it can also be land, it can also be possessions, it can also be relationships. If we think about what true value is and what wealth is, this I definitely feel like factors into this axis. Now, what's interesting about Taurus and the moon, especially in Taurus, the moon loves being in Taurus. It's exalted in Taurus because Taurus is about sensual, earthly pleasure. It's the Venus-ruled earth sign. So Venus in Taurus, I know we're talking about the moon, but give me a second. Venus being the ruler of Taurus is going to bring it that element of, okay, I'm going to enjoy the earth. I'm going to sink my fingers into the earth and discover the pleasures of taste, of the senses, of, what beauty my eyes can behold, as well as taste my tongue can experience and my fingers can touch, right? Like there are so many ways we can take this, and Taurus covers all of it. And frankly, it wants to bask in all of it. Basking being a great word for Taurus. In fact, like not moving, I think is immovable is a good word for Taurus. And the moon, it feels safe here. There's safety, there's security when it can just kind of sprawl out and feel whatever it's going to feel and be taken care of and nurtured in a way that it can just feel pleasure. So the moon is in its exalted place in Taurus. Now, when we have a full moon, the moon is going to be the furthest away from the sun. You might be approached with or confronted with this idea of what is pleasure, what is sensual delight, what is worth giving that kind of care to or nurturing to. Have you earned it? Have you, and I'm not asking that to actually like prod at you or confront you with, have you really earned it? Although maybe some of you out there might be feeling like I am. The whole notion around, well, do you feel secure enough about yourself to say, yes, I can claim this, I can own this, I can, and owning is another great word for this axis. Like, what does it mean to have ownership over something or someone? You believe you can own somebody. I know some of my Scorpio folks out there, like when they've chosen their one person, that one person is theirs forever. That's funny about these axes, right? Like, even though, yes, they're opposing each other, there are definitely currents of the same themes that run between the two of them. These are both two fixed signs. So that fixed nature, that stubborn nature, that obsessive, focused nature is going to be part of their story. And so they have that in common. Also, earth and water are complementary. Taurus being the earth sign, Scorpio being a water sign. So there is an element of growth here, even though it comes through this confrontation. So these elements of Taurus delights, pleasure, senses, security, having enough, sustaining yourself with enough. These are all questions being raised right now with the moon here, sort of asking itself, well, am I enough? Am I deserving? Am I cared for? Am I feeling secure right now? Do I feel safe? Do I feel my desires and my needs have been met? Meanwhile, over in Scorpio, our sun is opposing that. And Scorpio, our sun is challenging us because Scorpio is first and foremost transformation. And what transformation is born of first is a death of some sort. Of course, Scorpios have the rap of always trying to like dig up the trauma, dig up the wound, pick at the wound, make the wound, right? So, and they are a Mars ruled sign traditionally, and Mars is cutting, frankly. Mars is the god of war. And their other ruler is Pluto, the god of the underworld. So we have these very dark themes with Scorpio. But of course, when we all go through those inevitable dark periods of life, it is someone like a Scorpio who we need in those moments, who's not afraid of that darkness, who's not afraid to walk with us through the trauma and hold us and heal us and be dedicated to helping us transform. And we all go through these crises and traumas in our lifetime in different shades, of course, in different types of experiences, but walking through those places also holds so much reward when we can do the work on ourselves to heal ourselves, to understand, to process, to acknowledge the grief, right? While Taurus and Moon in Taurus might feel like all of the beautiful, lovely things, and the Sun in Scorpio might feel like the sun's light has been stuffed out by the darkness, they really are asking the very same question, which is like, do you feel secure, right? Do you have enough? Are you worthy enough? Do you feel powerful, or do you feel disempowered? Power is a big word with Scorpio. And so what I want to challenge you with is, have there been situations lately that you've come across, perhaps from other people? It could be people that are going through something in their lives where it's caused you to reflect and recognize something like a truth within your own self about your own security, about your own self-value or self-worth, about your own power. Have you recognized a power within yourself to affect and move people or give them a sense of value and worth? They're all big questions being raised with this transit right now. So let's take a look at some of these other aspects as well. This was a day on my Bonfire Babble podcast that I actually listed as being a magic day. And partially because we have Saturn. Okay, so the Saturn's not talking to the moon really much at all, but Saturn is at 25 degrees of Pisces talking to this Jupiter just about to go retrograde, by the way, folks, at 25 degrees of Cancer. So what's great about this, Jupiter and Saturn, when they work together, they're kind of opposites as well. We have this like interesting opposing energy, but they're not in opposition. They're in a trine. They're working together. So Jupiter is the yes planet. It's the open the doors, say yes, go for the thing. It's opportunistic. It's enthusiastic. It can be bombastic at times. And Saturn is cold. Saturn says no and puts up the boundary and reminds you of the rules and can be kind of a wet blanket, especially in Pisces. And so when they work together, what can happen is it can actually take this belief, this expansive, and in Cancer too, expansive belief through the nurturing of one's belief system, through the nurturing of one's optimism and joy and sense of abundance and hope for nurturing and caring of itself and others, all things Jupiter and Cancer. It takes that and it gives it structure. It gives it an actual practical, real footing to grow from. Because without that footing, Jupiter can just be full of big ideas and full of lots of emotions when it's in Cancer, and feel very emotionally tied and connected to its beliefs, to the point where if somebody doesn't believe in it, it could get rather dogmatic, or it could get bitter and jealous, or the Jupiter can create a lot of anxiety and worry in somebody. But with Saturn here kind of stabilizing Jupiter a little bit and saying, yes, there is actually some groundedness in Pisces, faith and compassion and unity with others. Recognize that, this isn't just one individual's dream. This is potentially a dream on a collective, that we as a collective society, as a consciousness, are moving toward this direction. And that's a lot of really big ideas. But for you specifically, what it might be indicative of is actually putting tangible steps to to a belief or a dream or a goal that you have in mind right now. And maybe that dream is just as simple as taking care of yourself better day by day. It doesn't need to be anything big and crazy, although it could be. It might look like having to make some really tough or solid commitments that feel a little scary, but it's with the steps taken to put that belief in the self, to bet on yourself. It's going to take holding yourself really accountable and having your faith, that Pisces up here, that faith be stronger than the doubt. And that can feel really tough. That can feel really confusing. Like you're kind of like deluding yourself, making yourself delusional, or believing in something that you don't actually quite believe in, but you're trying to kind of fake it till you make it. This might be a full moon where some of those beliefs actually get this little kernel of truth illuminated, where it's like, yes, actually, you see, universe is showing you the sign. I think that this could be really magical in the sense that if we open ourselves to what breakthroughs are available to us, if we open ourselves to the gratitude of the universe is working in our favor, we could actually see some really tangible steps toward like, oh, dose of good luck there. Okay, confirmed. Yes, I'm moving in the right direction. Or perhaps somebody says something that just aligns exactly with what you've been thinking or where you've been headed towards, and it's just the confirmation that you needed. It feels like here there might just be words or ideas or just signs that are hard to contextualize into like an easy to digest way, but something gives you that sense of I'm in the right direction, I'm going in the right path. Or perhaps also it could look like, I need to adjust course because this thing is actually what's drawing me and this feels like what is true. So a big question I think I would ask with this full moon really is, what is the truth that you're following? Because if it's a truth that's keeping you wounded, that's keeping you in the shadow, that's keeping you in a spiral of self-shame and self-judgment, and not allowing you to heal, not allowing you to bring worth and value to the self, to care for the self, that would be something I think I would interrogate. And maybe it's showing up in such a way where you have people telling you, or maybe not directly, but you see examples of what happens when we don't value ourselves. We don't care for ourselves. We don't allow ourselves those pleasures or those joys or those sweet, simple things that heal our wounds. We might be met with examples of what happens to people when they don't allow that to happen. So take the example, take the hint, and take the signal as being true, as being real. And if it feels like it's telling you something and showing you something, I would be inclined to believe it. Now, what's interesting about this also, Mars being our ruler of the sun right now, our traditional ruler, is in a sextile almost exactly with Pluto. Mercury just completed its sextile and will do 2 more after it goes retrograde this month. We have Mars, Mercury, sextile with Pluto, but opposing this Uranus. So Mars opposing Uranus is not an easy energy. This is severe shakeups and breakups, breakthroughs. This could look like insane innovation, but it's kind of coming out of, once again, an opposition. So it's a confrontation coming out of, you want this thing and I want this thing and we can't both have our way, and there's not really an easy compromise. So it might show up in relationship in terms of like a big blow up, even a freak out, somebody stamping and saying, I'm walking away and I'm never coming back, and cutting you off. That's a very Mars Uranus cutting off completely or amputating kind of energy, and just saying, I've had enough. I'm cutting off all communication. And so that can make us feel very insecure. People that we're supposed to care for or cared about or are supposed to care for us were never really there to begin with, or had different ideas and motives, and that can be a little bit earth-shattering. What I want to say with this, however, is because we have this interesting sextile and they're both in a closing sextile. So here's our sextile symbol. Here is the opposition symbol. This Pluto is acting as kind of a release point, honestly. It's between the Uranus and the Mars, which to me is saying, first of all, Pluto being in Aquarius, this is finding that power in detachment. So detaching from the emotions and not letting, frankly, the data, the what happened to who, and the rumorville, even the belief system, when you consider Mars and Mercury are in Sagittarius, like a staunch belief system or even dogmatic position. If you can remain detached and kind of look more big picture, look at it like a scientist rather than, a warrior, I guess, that could really be beneficial here. It might show up as somebody who is kind of a middleman who takes that approach and can just sort of lay out the facts coldly and truthfully, and that is what breaks the tension. But it can also come from, if you're coming from one of these places where you feel confronted or you need to make a clean break with something or someone, being able to stand in your power of detachment and not getting too emotional could be a real asset here. This is kind of tough with the moon and the sun's position, because these are really actually quite passionate and sensual places that feel, that want to connect and bond. Bond being a great Scorpio Taurus word for this full moon. And Aquarius, there is a bond there, certainly, but it looks different. So how can you maybe foster a bond or a connection that doesn't have to rely on the depth of emotion or possession in order to negotiate that or deal with that conflict, whatever that looks like? Can you stand in a bit of a detached power? Can you find it within yourself to look at the facts? I mean, take the break, walk away, right? See the bigger picture, see all the players here. Aquarius is our scientist. There might be even sort of an innovative or a surprising or out of the box solution to something that you're only going to find if you get some distance from it. So give yourself a little bit of distance if you're dealing with some sort of struggle like that, and see if you can gather some truth around what the next step is, remembering that it probably won't look conventional. It'll probably look like maybe a total power move that just throws everybody off and everyone goes, what? What did they just do? And what did they just say? And then it kind of snaps everybody out of it. Uranus being so heavily at play here with the sun's ruler, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some real shocks and awes. The moon's ruler, Venus, over here in her domicile with Libra, about to come into a square with Pluto. So highlight that for a second because I can't let that go. She's about to move into this square. This is also a psychological closing square. So this can look like those feelings I mentioned earlier of that shame and guilt and judgment really being put on the self, very weighted down by, it could even look like hatred of self, or just feelings that like of disempowerment that are coming from one's own mind. Those sort of spirals that we get into where we are kind of self-sabotaging ourselves with like mentally lashing ourselves. That can be a Venus square Pluto, and it can be very, very painful. And so be mindful of like how you're speaking to yourself internally through this process, through this full moon, as the days continue, because Venus is moving into that place. Again, try to see it from the Pluto perspective of, you know, these lessons, these beginnings and endings are happening for reasons that maybe we don't know the full breadth of. We don't know the full reason why these different power dynamics are at play. But can you take that step back and detach a little bit and see all the players and all the details before you make the call? Allow yourself to sort of like ice back a little bit and chill, literally, very Aquarian, before you make that statement or take that step forward. Be mindful of where it's coming from in here. Is it coming from self-judgment and self-sabotage? Is it coming from anger and passion and sadness and grief? And is there something you need to work on up here before you say the thing? I think we're going to be surrounded in the next few weeks with a lot of people saying some pretty harsh, probably truthful, but like shocking, details, information, and it won't always be tactful. In fact, a lot of the times it will feel very blunt and very raw, and that is because we are about to be in a Mercury retrograde, as well as this Jupiter retrograde, but Mercury retrograde, and it will talk to Mars, primarily in Sagittarius. And Sagittarians are not known for their tact. They speak the truth and they don't care who feels it or hears it. It is their truth. So no shade to Sagittarians, we need you. So with that is kind of the, at a glance, look I'm seeing at this full moon. There's a lot of different energies at play, but the reason I listed this as one of my magic days actually is really because I see a potential here if you can remain detached enough and recognize the opportunity that Jupiter, that universe is handing you via signals, via signs, via relationships that you're in, and seeing the truth of where people are. I think this could prove to be a really mind-blowing full moon of illumination that inspires you to take different steps in your life, to make a healing change, to heal a wound, to take care of yourself better. And I think all you have to do is remain open to changing. She says with a fixed full moon. Brilliant. Okay, well, good luck with that. Let's see what we can do to remain detached and open. Be sure to listen to my zodiacal forecast every season over on Bonfire Babble podcast, where I give the forecast as well as the magic days that I foresee coming. Great times to do your spell work, do your manifesting, do all the magical witchy things. I share all of those every month for free over on Bonfire Babble podcast. Big thank you to all my Blue Hour subscribers following along with me. If you're interested in getting updates when I'm uploading astrology or music or any of the other very witchy things I do, please be sure to head over and sign up for my free newsletter. With this full moon forecast, all of my newsletter subscribers get a spell book where I give a spell based on the forecast, as well as a couple other little goodies throughout the month for the new moon, full moon, and Sabbats. If you'd like to book a personal reading with me, I do have some availability on my calendar, and you can book over on CawnawynMor.com. I also offer recorded readings where I send you back a recording for any questions you might have about your natal chart within 72 hours. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this forecast. I will see you next month for the Gemini full moon. And until then, may you manifest a life of divine purpose and glory, for you are worthy and you are free. Blessed be.